Hello, so in this video I'll speak about the 4 basic archetypes, but we'll also speak about the Gunslinger and more importantly the Engineer. The first part of the video will help you choose your starting archetype. I'll also give a lot of tips about managing the archetypes, the bonuses, the dual archetype system and some other things, but I think the Gunslinger is overpowered. If you have the Gunslinger, that will be your first choice. If you didn't pre-order, that means you don't have the Gunslinger. To unlock the Gunslinger, you need to finish 2 walls, so that means wall number 1, wall number 2, plus the labyrinth, and yeah. It's going to take you a long time to unlock the Gunslinger naturally, plus you'll have to level it up to 10. So that's going to be maybe 20 hours until you have a level 10 Gunslinger if you don't have it as a pre-order bonus. But in the second part of the video, of course we'll have timestamps. I will tell you, I have another video how to get the Engineer archetype. Well, I'll tell you how to get the Engineer archetype, which is super strong. It might be one of the best starting classes for solo. And again, you'll start with some overpowered gear as well, because that's how the game is played. So it will be worth it for you to start a few times with a random character, unlock the class and then start again, because let me show you. Once you unlock a class or an archetype, you can play with that archetype from the beginning of the game. Great performance. See, I have the Engineer over here, so I can start the game and use the Engineer as a starting class. This will be very important for hardcore or other reasons, depends. But in that mode you cannot really see all of the information. You cannot see, for example, the passive traits and of course the traits you will get later. So I'll just play with my character and I'll show you all of the archetypes, because I have unlocked all of them on my character. Sadly, it's going to be very rough to level them up, because you'll always need to have a backbone archetype. I mean, there are not going to be a lot of situations where you're going to level 2 archetypes at the same time, unless you're playing on the easiest difficulty. But if that's the case, you'll not get a lot of resources and it will be a little slower. Again, depends on personal preferences, but at some point it will be very hard for you to level the archetypes. So at least start with, let's say, 1 or 2 archetypes that will be very easy for you to use. Okay, so the basic archetypes are the Challenger, the Hunter, the Handler, and the Medic. Now, let's just say my preference from the beginning. I think the best starting archetype as a basic one is the Challenger, the second one will be the Handler, the third one will be the Hunter, and the fourth one will be the Medic. And if you have the Gunslinger unlocked because you pre-ordered, definitely use the Gunslinger as a basic class. Definitely start with the Gunslinger, it's overpowered and you can use it to also level up your other classes. You'll need it so much, it has so many great bonuses. Probably the Gunslinger improves your game quality, I don't know, doubles it or triples it. But, like I said, if you don't have the Gunslinger unlocked because you didn't pre-order, I'll tell you how to get the Engineer archetype very fast. I also have another video for it, so I'll just be speaking a little bit about it and you will figure out the rest. It's pretty easy. So like I said, number 1, 2, 3, 4. This is always going to be number 1 if you ask me, but if you don't have the Gunslinger you can also get the Engineer. But if you want to play as the Engineer from the beginning of the game, it might be easier, but it will be a little less fun because you'll have to play a little more defensively, at least until you level up the Engineer to level 10. So let's get started. That's number 1, like I said, the Challenger. The Challenger is great, but don't use the Challenger with melee weapons, don't use the Challenger as a tank. Use it as a, I don't know, infantry fighting vehicle, a lot of firepower. The perk, Die Hard, you just get resurrected once every 10 minutes, can be very useful for those bosses that kill you in the last 10 seconds. Or when farming, you can just, use it to your liking. The skills. War Stomp. This is a very good skill set, it doesn't show over here, but it has 2 charges. So you can stomp the ground, and it will be very useful to clear out enemies that swarm you, melee enemies. It will be very useful to hit, I don't know, an enemy when you are reloading. If you are reloading and you have to kill something, use it. Very useful in the beginning, but sadly you can only choose 1 skill out of these 3. So you're always going to choose the Rampage or the ultimate skill. Always going to choose the ultimate skill for each of them. There is no question about it. The Juggernaut. The Juggernaut just gives you more survivability, but it's going to be for 25 seconds. This is going to be important to traverse a dungeon. For example, you want to go through a dungeon without fighting. just reaching the boss, which is great, or you just want to see what dungeons you have on the overworld, great. But otherwise you're not using it. You'll be using the rampage a lot more once you hit level 10. So let's go over this a little bit, because the bonuses are deceptive. So it might seem like 50% fire rate is not a lot of damage boost, but it is. It also increases your roll speed, movement speed, but also if you deal enough damage or if you kill stuff, you can get 10 stacks of rage, which will be 25% extra damage. Which means you'll also go berserk if you have 10 stacks, loading your firearm and doubling rampage effects for 15 seconds. Basically it will be a lot of damage. It's going to almost double your damage capacity, but again, it's going to be hard to use. But definitely, for example, if you have the medic equipped as the first class and this one as the second one, and you have the rampage, that will help you immensely. Rampage is such a good skill to use, especially if you can use it to the Gunslinger one, of course. Using these two at both at the same time can turn your damage into, I don't know, a laser beam. You'll be shooting rockets almost. Let's speak a little bit about the perks. Now, close quarter. Again, these perks will be leveled up automatically with your archetype. So I don't know what the fully upgraded perks look like, because they should have included this information over here. So you'll get other buffs for these things. For example, close quarter over here will get another buff. Basically, I don't know, it's going to be 30% more damage. Anyway, you do a lot more damage up close to the enemy, but you also do more damage if the enemy is in the 20-meter radius, which is great. So more damage. Intimidating presence. You take less damage. You can dodge roll a lot more. You take less damage after healing. So as you can see, this is a kind of like a thing that will repeat itself. So when you're using the rampage, you can have some more damage reduction. Plus, your trait will allow you to have better armor, reducing your encumbrance. Again, I'm not going into too many details, but this will allow you to basically be a much better tank, also preserve some mobility and deal a lot of damage. It's great, it's a great archetype overall. My second choice, the Handler. Why is the Handler my second choice? Well, basically the Challenger is the aggressive type of basic class that if you play the Challenger, will have speed, momentum, and violence. If you play the Handler, you have peace, quiet, and tranquility. Yeah, you will have to play a lot more defensively, and you can also get resurrected by your dog every 2 minutes. And getting Simulacrum is very easy in this game, because they always spawn on the second map of the planet, and they'll always be more or less in the same area, meaning roughly the general location, meaning it will look the same, and it's pretty easy to find. So you can get to 7 or 8 relic charges very fast, so this will be very helpful for you to play the game normally, but sadly it lacks the utility and the damage burst. So Guard Dog basically take less damage. Support Dog, this is how you'll farm the game. So if you're in a dungeon or the overworld, or if you're fighting, I don't know, something, you'll be using this because you want the passive healing, plus also the hold. You can basically get another relic art charge for free. It's a lot of great healing, plus the movement speed is also very good. This is the fastest way to see what encounters you have, what dungeons you have on the map. It can be very good. And for bosses or for certain challenges, you of course have the Attack Dog, which just is more damage. Because Companion will follow the Handler and deal 20% additional damage, the Howl will also mean 20% increase in damage. The perks. Attack Hunter, you'll get range damage and skill damage, but as you can see, this will be active all the time almost. 20 meters is a huge radius. I'm glad they made it like this. So this is going to be probably 30% more range damage, but also skill damage. So that means you probably want to have skills that deal a lot of damage. Great. So you'll be doing a lot of damage. You'll also have more movement speed. So yeah, as you can see, the Support Dog and the Spirit Wolf will give you so much more movement speed, plus your trinkets and some other things like the consumables. Is going to be fast. Revive speed not so important. Best friend, yeah, restores companion health. The dog will not be damaged that much. One thing I don't like is the trade. This is a useless trade. The developer said all of the classes will be balanced, but this is specifically a trait that is useless in any case. Besides, why do I have a multiplayer trait when I'm playing single player? This doesn't make any sense. Why would they introduce something like this? I really hope they change the trait for the handler because it's useless. Okay, so that was my number 2 choice. Let's speak about my number 3 choice. Some people will say the hunter is very good and very deadly. Yes, but it has a lot of problems. So for example, the prime perk, Dead to Rights. So if you deal range weak spot damage, extends the duration of active hunter skills by 2.5 seconds. Which might sound like it's a lot, but we'll get to that in a minute after we talk about the skills. Hunter mark. 50% increased range damage. And crit chance against marked enemies increased by 50% for all allies. So seeing them in enemy will not be so important. This game uses a swarm tactic. So if you attack an enemy and kill it, it will spawn more enemies. It can spawn an elite. The problem is the hunter doesn't have enough survivability, enough utility, or not even how should I put it, a great chance of finishing the game alone. Sometimes the hunter will kill certain bosses super easy. Sometimes it will struggle so much because not all of the bosses will have a weak spot. Not all of the enemies will have a weak spot. Some enemies will be super fast and you cannot do anything. And most of the dungeons will be close quarters. So if you're going to use a gun that deals a lot of damage, like I don't know, a gun with a sniper scope, you might have some problems. The game might be easy on certain parts but very hard on the other ones. So that's why I don't like it. So this can also be useless at points at some time. And it's also going to last 25 seconds. Yeah, you can increase it, but it's going to be annoying playing with wall hacks. X-ray vision is not fun. Hunter focus. The problem is continuously aiming down sight. It can be very hard to aim down sight a lot. The benefit is that you'll mark them, but like I said, you'll mostly be using the first and the last one. And in this case, sadly, the last one or the ultimate skill is not so useful. Shroud, basically ambush, increase range and melee damage by 50%, which diminishes over its duration. Range, okay, apply marked. Hunter will gain shroud again after 15 seconds. 15 seconds again. It's a lot of nonsense. If you're going to play this class like they intended, you will see that you'll have a lot of fun, but you'll also get killed a lot of times. I don't know, it's a mixed bag of a class. Because this is not a damage burst. This is just a simple wall hack. In most cases you'll know where the enemies are, and the extra damage you get from these is not so important. Deadeye. Damage perk, 4% range damage and 1.5 weak spot damage. This will be huge because that will mean what? 40% range damage or something like that. Yeah, this is probably the best combat perk in the game currently because that means you'll be able to kill enemies a lot faster. It's just pure damage without any nonsense attached to it. But, return to sender. Increase ammo drop by 25% if you kill with a critical shot or weak spot. It can be hit or miss. Most of the times you'll not really need this. It will be useful against boss fights. Urgency, reload speed after a kill, not so useful. Again, you want to play this character so slow that these things will not even matter that much. And then intuition. Extends any active skill by 5 seconds if you use a relic. Now, like I said, you can have basically 10 relic hard charges in 20 hours of playtime. It's going to be very easy to get the relics. It's going to be harder to apply them because you'll need a lot of scrap as well. So yeah, I don't think these are powerful enough, and besides, most of the times you'll not need any buffs because you can handle yourself quite well. Long shot. Increase the weapon ideal range by 0.6 meters. So you can basically make some of the... Most of the guns will have about 20 meter range, but you can also make some of the close range guns have 20 meters, and there are also a lot of rings that will lower recoil and spread. So this can be very good, but at the same time it can be useless because you're going to be mostly using rifles anyway. So again, it doesn't make sense why it's built like this, and especially because you're not going to level it up. This is one of the most useless traits when you see what the other ones can do, and you need more survivability. I just don't like it because it doesn't have enough survivability or damage burst. Or utility for that matter, because as you saw, the bulwark can run, can do a lot of things. Yeah, many people like playing like this because it's the more slow and calculated. Probably good for people who play Counter-Strike or Call of Duty. They'll be able to switch, what is it called, yeah, flick the enemy. But again, you'll see that a lot of enemies don't have weak spots, a lot of elites can be very rough to handle. The medic, plus number 4. It's a bit of a discussion because I don't think this is very useful. You have something that will basically it's like the skill. You have a spot on the ground that will heal, but it's not really useful because in this game, like I said, you'll have a lot of relic charges and a lot of ways to heal, so healing will not become as important as you think for a solo class, so I don't really understand. Oh yeah. Let's speak about... yeah, I forgot to speak about the prime perk first of all, Regenerator. After restoring Shanut 50 total health to allies, regain a spent relic charge. So that means if you heal your allies, you'll get another relic charge if you have a free slot. So that means you have 6 relics, you use them 4 times, you heal someone for 350, you get 1 charge back. Resting or respawning at Wallstone resets healing accumulation. Each additional player increase. The healing. Okay, so you can basically gain 1 or 2 hearts while playing normally, but mostly doing bond fights probably too. So it's not. This is one of the worst prime perks in my opinion, because you can have a lot of charges already. This is good for the beginning of the game, but you don't have damage. Healing shield. Again, it's kind of good, but you don't have damage, and it doesn't really say if it's going to work on yourself as well. The shield itself is very good, it's going to help you a lot during boss fights, but at the same time, who would play a medic? Why would you play a medic? It's very boring and you still have to upgrade its archetype. So most likely what people will do is get the Gunslinger, the Challenger, the Hunter, whatever other classes, archetypes they can get, and then they level the medic as a secondary archetype and then they lose it only in co-op, but otherwise it's pretty useless. Redemption, Shockwave to revives down allies and restores 50% HP or more. If you hold it more, they'll gain more HP. And okay, again, that doesn't really matter. It resets. So it's I think it's a 120-second cooldown, but again, that doesn't really matter. It's not so interesting. Let's go over the perks. More damage, increase to all damage, which is pretty good. 25% increase to all damage. I guess that means more damage, melee damage, range damage can be very good. Benevolence. Relic healing efficiency 50% and heals nearby allies for 30% of total healing. Again, this might work. I'm not sure if it works on summons. I'll just have to see if it works or not. Depends. Backbone. And you can take another hit before losing grey health. This can be important, yes or not, because if you get it, let's say, for 50 damage, you'll get some grey health. This will allow you to take more hits, basically granting you some improvised regeneration, which can be good, but at the same time, it doesn't really matter that much in the long term. It's not consequential. Increase relic use speed by 20%. This is actually one of the best buffs, if you think about it. Best utility buffs. The trait, triage. Increase healing by 5%. Can be good, can be very bad. I'm not sure if healing... I don't think healing means increasing your lifesteal or anything like that. Anyway, it's going to be pretty rough to use the medic. So I think most people will just use it as the secondary archetype. They will level while playing normally and then use it in co-op sometimes. So yeah. They can be very good or can be very bad. But now let's look at the Gunslinger at level 10. Why is the Gunslinger overpowered? Well, it's useful in all ways, loaded. In activating any Gunslinger skills, both weapons are instantly reloaded and gain infinite ammo reserve on all weapons for 8 seconds. On its own, the prank perk is not that useful, believe me, it's not that useful, but if you run out of ammo, if you activate a skill, you have the ammo. That's not how you use it though, this is kind of a useless thing, in my opinion. Quick draw. Now, why is this so important in the beginning of the game? Quick draw basically lets you do a lot of damage. 6 critical shots. Again, up to 6 critical shots from the hip. Each shot deals 73.5 and has double the stagger value. Hold and release. I don't like the hold and release. You're mostly going to just press it and kill an enemy. The problem with this is, okay, this will be a more in-depth discussion because, like I said, the Gunslinger is overpowered to be played since the start. The quick draw skills basically allows you to delete an elite. Delete the elite. It also has a pretty low cooldown as well. I think it was 40 seconds. Again, my traits mess up the timers a little bit. It will also allow you to kill enemies that are flying or, you know, otherwise a little harder to kill. So what I found is that this perk, for example, if you hit a weak spot or anything like that, plus the stagger, it will kill most of the elites you encounter in the beginning of the game. Yeah, later it will not be as useful, but it will allow you to basically clear a screen of enemies or kill an elite. If the elite is alone, it will most likely not survive, and even if survives, it will be left with low health. So I think this is a cheese skill because it's too useful. Just make sure you are only facing the elite, there are no other enemies around the elite, and you can basically cheese the elite by instant killing it. You can imagine this is super useful for farming, this is super useful for enemies. For bosses it's not so useful because you still have to do the animation. So you do the animation to shoot, and then it will take a second or so before the animation is reset and you can do something else. It can also get you killed because you need time. If you are in a corner, don't use this one. Don't get stuck there. But yeah, overpowered, very overpowered compared to the other. I mean, look at what I explained with the other skills. It might not seem like a lot, but you can target anything, do anything. Sidewinder. Increase ADS movement speed and draw swap speed by 50%. Cycling weapons will automatically reload incoming firearms. Last 12 seconds. This is a bit of a hit and miss because this will be mostly used with shotguns or very high damage weapons that only have one or two rounds in the magazine. To be honest, this is not so useful. It's going to be useful for niche builds, but otherwise you'll not be using it a lot. More or less useful, but not fun to use anyway. Because look at the bullet storm. The bullet storm is so much better than the other ones. So when you have a proper gun, you can use the bullet storm. 20% fire rate, reload speed 50%, 20 seconds, and this also lasts a lot longer than the other ones. But also single shot weapons become fully automatic. Well, this is not so important because let's say you have the lever action rifle, it will not shoot faster, it just means you can hold click instead of clicking. But the fire rate is the same. I mean, you also get that buff over there. And bows and crossbow gain 50% critical chance and 50% increased projectile speed. This is going to be super powerful because a lot of weapons, for example, if you add, let's say, 10% to another weapon and use this skill, again, it has a huge potential to max out damage more than you think. You can also use Rampage and Bullet Storm at the same time, which is crazy. Again, most of the times you will not really get a chance to use it perfectly, but it's going to be enough. And also this perk is one of the best. Look at that, 50% fire rate, 25% range damage. So as you can see, it overshadows all of the other perks just because of how useful and versatile it is. Fire rate, a lot of range damage, 5% crit chance for all firearms. You know what this means? This is basically a 50% increase in damage. You know, while I was playing with the Gunslinger, I didn't even need to upgrade any of my guns because he leveled up, he got more damage. A substantial amount of damage. This is overpowered, too much damage. This is not so useful, more ammo, depends on what you have. Quick hands, increase the reload speed by 20% if your magazine is empty. Can be very useful, but again, it's more or less useful. Sleight of hand. Using a relic reloads equipped firearm and increase range damage by 50% for 10 seconds. Again, what's with all of this massive damage? Like I keep saying, at some point you'll have so many relics that you'll be able to use them throughout the fight. So if a fight is, let's say, 60 seconds with a boss, you'll use 6 relics. So that's 1 relic every 6 seconds. So that means you'll always have access to this buff over here, 50% increased damage. So if you calculate all of the damage from the perks, if you calculate the damage added from the bullet storm, and don't even take into account the second archetype, that's a lot of burst damage. It's the highest amount of burst damage you can get in a few seconds. In 10 seconds you can reduce some bosses' health to 50%, and that's why I think it's overpowered. Now the Gunslinger trait to increase your ammo reserve by 50%, it doesn't feel like it's that important, but I found out the hard way. It's very important because you will run out of ammo a lot of times in this game. Especially when you're doing so much work, when your output is so big. Basically with that much fire rate, you'll fire a lot more bullets. And I don't know, it depends on personal preference, but I think this is a very, very good trait to have on everything, because look at this. You're going to have the Gunslinger as a secondary archetype, and then whatever class you'll be using has damage, has survivability, has everything it will need. Because the other classes will usually have more utility or survivability, but this is pure raw DPS. It's just overpowered in my opinion. They shouldn't have... So, again, you unlock the Gunslinger after you finish 2 planets. That can take you a lot of time, and then you will also have to level the Gunslinger to 10. So that's going to be a huge drain on your resources and time. So might as well get it as soon as you can if you have the pre-order bonus. Okay, now let's speak about the cheese tactic, because this is a thing that I don't think that the developers really thought this out very well. So the engineer is one of the archetypes you can unlock very easy, and he also looks cool. So every planet will have an archetype that you can unlock very easy and very fast. Yes, the summoner, just kill some blood moon. Sometimes they don't spawn, that can be a problem. Blossom, the alchemist, just get dragged into the sewers. Pretty easy to do if you just reroll the planet, if you don't get it from the first time. And then Neyreyan, you get the engineer class simply going to the second map and finding something in the fog or in the poisonous gas. Now I have a video on how to do that. So let's do a little overview for the engineer as well, and why I think it's an important class for solo players if they don't have the gunslinger, or if they just want a more defensive build that will skyrocket. Once the engineer reaches level 10, he'll be unstoppable, but that's the only reason you want him. So let's do the class overview, and then I'll detail a little more how to get him. Also, I have the video in the comment. So, high tech. This is not so important. Basically, you can use your gun with increased fire rate, 25% damage. Again, it's not very clear what is the exact damage your prime perk deals, because I think you'll be using your heavy gun, which is your turret, which is more or less dependent on your other types of damage. I don't know if it has a set amount of damage, because it's not really written over here. That's annoying. So you can basically use the turret as a weapon. I will make another guide for this class, because it's very hard to understand unless you use it a lot. So this is almost useless at some point. You don't really want to pick up the turret, because that means the turret will only be fired by you as a weapon. You want to leave the turret on the ground so it shoots at enemy. Vulcan turret. Now this is almost overpowered, but it has a few problems that I think you understand what I mean. So this has a pretty big cooldown. If you pick it up, you'll fire it and use it on your hands as a weapon. If you leave it there, it will shoot until it runs out of ammo. But you don't want to leave it on the ground. You have to pick it up before you leave. It's like Aliens Dark Descent. You pick up your turrets, man. Double press. The weapon is reclaimed, returning 75% of its returning ammo. Heavy weapon ammo is regenerated by 1% every second. The heavy weapon can only be deployed if it has at least 25% ammo available. So that means you can use it a lot of times. But again, this is so massive. It can clear enemy waves alone. If you're playing on the easier difficulty, the survivor, you just put the turret down and you just look at the enemies getting killed. If an elite spawns, it will be harder, but it can also sometimes kill it on its own. Massive boost. This one is just another flame. It is not a turret, it's another turret, flamethrower. Not as useful because you want all of the range. Sometimes you can shoot enemies all the way across the map and it also detect them. So you want probably to use the Vulcan a lot more, and this one, the impact, I cannot even begin to imagine how fun it is to use. I cannot wait until it's unlocked, but it's probably going to be super strong, and this is probably going to double your damage output. Now let's talk about the perks. Yeah. Skill damage. Metal will increase your skill damage by 45% and skill critical chance by 10%. As you can imagine, that can be really strong and really rough on the enemy, especially if you're going to use a weapon that has, let's say, a buff to the damage like overflow or some other things. For example, when I'm playing this game and I used all of my buffs, I, for example, used the Bullet Storm, I use the gun's overflow ability, which is just electric damage and more fire rate. It will seem like I'm shooting, I don't know, a minigun. If you've seen my other videos where I kill stuff, you will understand. It's a super great perk because it can scale with everything, so you can scale with everything you do. Again, I'll need more testing, but I think this is very good. Also increases the ammo capacity for the heavy weapon, its health, and its weak spot damage. So again, it's much more stronger than anything. Basically, this archetype can have double the damage. Magnetic field, 50% damage reduction, and gradually restore ammo to allies when you're near it. Okay, this is another huge thing, because like I said, ammo will be a problem. So as you can see, the engineer has a way to deal around the ammo problem. He just needs to stand near the turret. He'll gain some ammo. It's not a lot of ammo, but it's pretty sizable. You can see it increase your ammo. Plus the damage reduction is huge because he has damage and utility. heavy mobility, this will not so be important, but yeah, you can. This is basically you carrying the heavy weapon as a normal weapon. It's kind of funny to do, but not so useful. You want the turret to shoot on its own. Surplus. Using a relic refills 50% of heavy weapon ammo, and the bonus is double if the heavy weapon is towed. You can also drop the additional ammo based on the surplus on the ground, which has a lot of utilities. For example, you will put the turret, it will shoot at the boss, you'll pick up the turret, use a heart. Again, it's kind of a micromanagement, but you can see how good it is. You can also get some surplus. The fortified threat is one of the best things in the game. Increase armor effectiveness by 50%. You might think, well, that's not a lot of armor, is it? It's massive, believe me. So I can... My current damage reduction is 52%. It's crazy. And I can also do the light dodges. We are heavy. Let me see what I can change over here, and that will not be enough. Okay, let me look at this for a moment. Medium. It's a little weird, but you get the idea. So as you can see, we can still look cool, but we have the pants to prove it. So 50% it's a normal dodge, but we have 135 armor, which is crazy. It's beyond crazy how useful this can be. So, hop. Oh, I guess I can show you my build for now. As you can see, overflow, increase range damage by up to 15% with the deadly calm. Fire rate, reload speed, also overload, shock damage. It's a lot of damage. Why did I equip that one? Wait, that's not cool. Easy, done, come back to me. Hey, I always forget to pick it up after I use it, that's a problem. So you don't have to carry it in your hands, as you can see. Okay, now everything will be according to plan. DPS. Not accounting for weak spot damage and some other things I'll be getting soon. And keep in mind, this weapon is only +7. I can make this gun probably +12 or something like that, and it will vastly increase the DPS capacity. Plus, this is only a starter gun, and I can get some much better guns a little later. Now, let me show you the trick and what I'm talking about. Cover your eyes if you don't want to see any of this. So to unlock the engineer class, again, this is not a guaranteed spawn, but I'll show you how to do it right now. And again, it's going to be detailed in another video. So the engineer class will spawn somewhere around the second map in the fog over here. Now it's pretty easy to see because it will be a little rock with a few spikes on it, and next to it, it will be taller spikes, but the distance between them is about 2 doors, and it really looks like a door when you look at it. So a little rock, a little rock ledge with a few spikes on top of it, and then next to it are much bigger spikes, and it looks like a doorway. And if you enter that, you can just jump in the fog and get the item to unlock the archetype. Now, this area will only spawn in the second map of Neyreyan, but it will only have the engineer armor sometimes. So you might want to reset the game a couple of times until the archetype items will appear. I think I needed 2 or 3 attempts to get it, but you can be lucky and get the archetype item for the engineer in the first try. Also, you can just unlock, this is the cheesy part. You can start with a dog handler, choose Neyreyan as your starting planet or reroll until you get Neyreyan, go to the first map, do the first dungeon, go to the second map, and then do as like I said. It's pretty easy to see how the entrance to the engineer archetype item looks like. Like I said, it's a little rock wall, or it's kind of a little rock ledge with a few spikes on it, and next to it is going to be larger spikes, taller spikes, and it looks kind of like a door. It's very easy to see. once you see the video or a picture. And then you might get the engineer item class over there or not, but try again. So restart, restart again. You will have to restart the entire planet because you need to finish Nerud once to be able to unlock it in adventure mode. So that means restarting the entire game with another dog handler, which is the easier one to do. You might want to do the putrid domain because it's easier than the hatchery if you have the dog. Go over here and you probably will get it in 2 or 3 attempts. So why is it cheesing? Well, you will get also starting gear. I don't know if you noticed, but all of the classes have some starting gear. So let's do that right now. Let's create a new character. I don't know, let me explain the gun you'll be receiving. The gun you'll be receiving is one of the hardest guns to get because to get the gun we'll be starting off with, you need to have 2 encounters on the same adventure map or the campaign map, which is very hard to get both of them at the same time. I think I tried 10 times and I didn't get them at the same time, and you need to also complete the dungeons to get them. It's going to be very rough to get this gun by playing the game normally. This is a little bit unfair, yeah, buggy. So look at the starting gear. Yeah, they basically have some random weapons. The Gunslinger has much better starting gear than the other ones, of course, but I think the best starting gear is with the Engineer. Or the best starting guns. The pulse rifle, like I said, can only be obtained if you have the... I forgot, the unrefined or whatever. You need to have 2 dungeons, you need to finish the 2 dungeons, you need to take 2 data cores, you need to bring them to the custodian, under the custodian, then it's a little secret. And only then you'll get the pulse rifle. I was not able to get it in 10 attempts, which is crazy. Because you can just get it as a starting weapon over here. So you'll be saving yourself so much time if you just start with the Engineer. This is, yeah, no. You get the Technician armor, which is heavy. So you can, this is great, look at this. You can use the Survivor Overcoat, which will put you at 90 armor. That means your damage reduction will be 32%, which is crazy in the beginning of the game. But I keep saying crazy, but it's kind of decent. And your starting gear will be like this, the Atom Smasher, which is, well, I guess it's not, depends on how you view things. So let's use this a little bit. Yeah, I'm also receiving my gifts. Besides looking cool, it's very strong when you get it going with the charge attack. Let's look at the stats of this gun. So as you can see, this is 8 rounds per second, 16 damage. So that's well over 100 DPS per shot, and you can fire it a little faster, you'll see what I mean. But the cool thing is that this gun has also 10% critical chance, 105 weak spawn modifier, plus the stagger is 5%. And you can put whatever modification, whatever mod or whatever imitator on it, which is cool. You also get the Rupture Cannon, which again, look at this, it's over 100 DPS. It has a very good magazine as well. It's more or less for close range, as you can see it has only 13 meters the ideal range, but it also has stagger plus the critical hit chance. So you're going to get over 100 DPS with the secondary weapon. And about 100 DPS with this gun. And you might think, well, that's not good, is it? Yeah, it's over 100 DPS, I don't know, sometimes it doesn't show you correctly. The reload is pretty fast as well, but think about it, this is a basic character. If you had all of the points from the Gunslinger archetype over here, all of the traits, if you had all of this leveled up to the max, skill damage and such, and all of those other things, all of those things upgraded, if you had also the turret, basically you can start the game, and this archetype being level 10, you can massively improve your damage. So I think this is as good as the Gunslinger start, if not better. I think this is a little better than the Gunslinger start, because with the turret you can do massive amounts of damage. And you can also pick it up, and let me show you how much damage you can do. Overcharge the beast. Well, I think it does 100 DPS on its own. It doesn't really seem to improve it when I shoot it, but again, you can activate the... I guess it's on a cooldown. But you see, you can overclock it while you have it in your hands, or you can also overclock it when it's doing its thing. Okay, let's activate it again, because that was a kind of a bad showcase of it. You can also aim it, which is much more important than you think. Okay, leave me alone tutorial, I said I don't want it. So let's do that. Pick it up. I have to press and hold. I'm not very used to this type of deal. I cannot overclock it. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Let's just shoot it right now. So let me try that again. But anyway, the point is that you can get a gun that deals 150 DPS off the start of the game with everything being level 1 or 2. That's going to make your game a lot easier. Let's try that again. I'm still not convinced I did it the right way. Why doesn't it let me overcharge the beautiful thing? Okay, now it let me charge it. Shoot. Yeah, 200 DPS. It's stronger than the Gunslinger in my opinion. It has also the same utility, and you can also use it in a lot of other ways. Yeah, it also has a little melee animation. It's kind of funny. Also remember to pick it up and then drop it, otherwise you'll have problems with the cooldown. You should just leave it where it is. Come on, why does it... Okay, I was triple tapping it. It's a little of a longer video, but it has a lot of the information you need about the starting classes, how to get the Gunslinger, also how to cheese the game a little bit if you don't have the Gunslinger. Or if you want to start with the Engineer since the beginning, good to get the overpowered gear. Normally to get these three items, you need 10 hours or something like that, or even more. Anyway, see you next time. Bye bye.